The longest presidential State of the Union address in American history.
President Trump used his 2026 State of the Union to argue the country is stronger economically, more secure at the border, and then newly dominant on the world stage. But Democrats, well, they quickly pushed back on that.
In the party's response, Virginia's Governor Abigail Spanberger criticized the president's claims on affordability, tariffs, and immigration, saying that Americans are still struggling with high cost.
Let me ask you, the American people watching at home, 3 questions. Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? Is the president working to keep Americans safe both at home and abroad? Is the president working for you?
All right, we're joined now by Dr. Karen Hult, a political science professor at Virginia Tech. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. The big picture first, what do you think about the message that Americans took away from the president's address?
Well, as always with these kinds of addresses, it depends on which Americans were paying attention, and the live broadcast, all the other services which we could observe what was going on, what was said, how it was said, and things like that. So that's one big question. In terms of viewership throughout, probably it's a particular kind of audience, people very focused on politics going forward, but also people that we think tend to agree with the president anyway. Others, in contrast, would be focusing perhaps on other events that were taking place in and around the State of the Union, as well as some of their own concerns about paying bills for rent, for gasoline, for electricity, and a whole range of things. So I think it's really going to depend on the target audiences.
The audience divided, it appears, and also those there in attendance in the chamber there. The president clashed with some of the Democrats during last night's address. But from as far as your opinion goes, did you see any signs of the president trying to unite both sides of the aisle here?
Not very much. What was fascinating to me about the address is that it started off celebratory, to be sure, celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States, but also really focusing in on some defiance from the president's part, but returning to many of almost the campaign rally sorts of lines that President Trump has been very good at, and engaging in a bit of a back and forth with an audience that was not doing as much to react to him as he may have been trying to provoke on the Democratic side of the aisle.
All right, so we're talking about the economy a lot this morning. He touched on that. How effective was his stance on the state of the economy, especially since we've been fact-checking those claims, and some of them have been wrong or greatly exaggerated?
Well, I think that's accurate. And of course, so much of that depends on how much the viewers or the watching on streams or the paying attention to various video and other streams people are paying attention to. Many of them were indeed exaggerated. Others were misleading, and still others are not as well grounded as they might be. But some of it depends on the frame of mind and who it is one trusts as a messenger. For members of really strongly intense Republican voters that are aligned with Mr. Trump, it probably was very persuasive. And we're getting some of these snap public opinion polls saying that on the whole, those people were relatively well satisfied. That does not cover perhaps many of the people that also have some concerns about the economy and who may or may not turn out to vote.
What did you think about the Democratic response from Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger?
Well, it had the advantage, one could argue, of being quite brief compared to the president's address. But more than that, she really crystallized the issues that many Democrats are looking toward running on going into the 2026 midterm elections. And that has to do with concerns about immigration, clearly concerns about affordability, as well as concerns about some, those will be driving issues. For others, it simply adds to the polarization that many people are feeling. I don't think either of them perhaps address the levels of alienation and despair, if you will, about whether government is working for what voters care most about. And that's a continuing issue.
All right, so we've got these midterms coming up. What do you think this will mean for the midterms? Or does it even matter? When you mentioned this earlier that you're talking to the people that if the president is speaking to the people that he pretty much already has, what will this mean for the midterm, or will it mean anything for the midterm elections?
I think it's going to vary on where people are voting and who is actually turning out to vote. I think the issue of whether this mobilizes more Republican Trump supporters to go vote or whether it mobilizes in some parts of the country, especially in those close races in very difficult areas, mobilizing the other side to turn out to vote. Some of the concerns of many analysts of this is all of the background noise about immigration and ICE checks and things of that may keep some people from turning out at the polls at all. So that really is an open question. You're exactly right.
Before we let you go, let's touch on foreign policy. Now, I think everybody is sort of training their attention to what might happen with Iran. Any other signals that the president sent out last night to the American people as far as foreign relations, in your opinion?
Well, what he was attempting to do was to reinforce his commitment to negotiation rather than fighting and those sorts of things. At the same time, we also know that did not receive very much attention. We know that there is massive buildup in and around Iran. We also know from even the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that there's real concern on the military side about the U.S. being stretched too far around the world, but it's certainly in the Middle East.
Dr. Karen Hult, political science professor at Virginia Tech. Thank you so much for joining us again this morning. We really appreciate your insight.
Thanks for having me.